All right, what's up, guys? If you are watching after, we're going to mostly discuss a lot of running backs. We're going to discuss a lot of the NFL draft continued discussion, Q&A, like it always is. Now, I love Ashton Jeanty, obviously. I love Omarion Hampton, obviously. I ironically think one of Omarion Hampton's biggest weaknesses is being in the same class as Ashton Jeanty, similar to how one of Malik Neighbors' biggest weaknesses last year was being in the same class as Marvin Harrison Jr. And Neighbors went on to have a 1,000-yard rookie year and was a very good player. So both players, both Ashton Jeanty and Omarion Hampton, can be very good, and I expect both to be very good. Now, to continue to go down my notes, I love Caleb Johnson from Iowa. I think he is a really, really talented player. He, to me, is just a guy Kyle Shanahan would love. To give you an idea, I just want to put some numbers next to Caleb Johnson's name because like I said, I am a big Caleb Johnson guy. Last year in 2024, his final year, Caleb Johnson ran for 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, and he was everybody. I mean, he was a breakout player for. I mean, if you had a breakout player in the middle of the year, it was Caleb Johnson. He averaged 4.42 yards per carry after contact. Had 66 more missed tackles, forced during his final year at Iowa. Like I said, he's a player that Kyle Shanahan would love, and he will turn 22 in August. So Caleb Johnson is another player that I love from this class. He's actually my RB3. I know a lot of people have Travion Henderson over him, but I like Travion Henderson, just not as much as I like Caleb Johnson. So, all right. Should the Eagles draft an RB2 or stick with Will Shipley because he is productive? I would never be opposed to another running back within reason. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, they should draft, Omarion Hampton at 32. That's not what I'm saying. But in today's era, there's a couple of positions that I'm really not opposed to. Running back is one, not in any order, by the way, but offensive line especially, pass rush especially, corner depth, and running back, and I guess receiver as well. But mainly the trenches, and then, of course, corner and then running back, because like I said, you have a running back go down, and there's a big difference between Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift and Saquon Barkley. So I would not be upset at all if the Eagles drafted an RB2. All right. How's it going? It's going well. How are you? Let's go. Glad you're streaming tonight. Yeah, I've streamed the last couple Monday nights. Wanted to stream again. Wanted to also discuss some running backs tonight. That was, because the biggest thing is with the draft videos is the all 22 from the college, or from college, is a nuisance, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. It's not cut and dry as much as you would think, and it can be pretty frustrating. So I'll just leave it at that. But I do love Caleb Johnson. I really, really like Dylan Sampson. I couldn't think of a player to compare to Dylan Sampson. There were a couple of guys when I was watching his tape that came to mind, but none were like copy and paste. None were just, this is my pro comparison, and I absolutely love this one. For reference, Damian Martinez, to me, I thought was like a 2025 version of Kareem Hunt. I think Damian Martinez is a really good running back. To me, he is that back that you want. He's going to be a fan favorite if he gets when he gets on the field, because he's a guy that doesn't go down. He's a guy that is all rear end and elbows. If you've ever heard that phrase, he is a load to bring down. Damian Martinez, that is. So I like Damian Martinez a lot for who he is as a player, and I thought he compared very favorably to Kareem Hunt. That was my pro comparison for Damian Martinez, and he's like 5'11", 220, somewhere in there. And then athletic testing wise, Damian, see here, where did he test? He ran a 4.51 40. So like I said, I like Damian Martinez a lot from Miami. Obviously, everyone is going to be talking about who will be the number one pick in Cam Ward, and I get it. But Damian Martinez, to me, is a guy that should be taken. I would be fine with it on day 2, but if he goes on day 3, then he will be an absolute steal. But he is going to be a guy that, if the Colts did not have Jonathan Taylor, I would love the idea of him running behind Quentin Nelson. So Damian Martinez is another player that I really like in this class. He had a bit of a down year in 2024 relative to 2023. At least he didn't have the volume at Miami that he did at Oregon State. He ran for nearly 1,200 yards during the 2023 season at Oregon State. And he actually averaged more yards after contact this year than he did in 2023. So, hot take, Vikings go tight end in round 1 surprises us all. Depending on the board and how it plays out, I'm going to be honest, that's not a pick that I wouldn't hate, Tristan. I mean, if Colston Loveland is there, to me, Colston Loveland is a future Pro Bowl tight end. And anytime you can upgrade the pass catching unit, I'm not going to say go for it every single time, in theory, but it's not, an exact math formula, if you will, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'll just leave it at that. I don't think it's the craziest idea. All right, is James Pierce a project? I don't think James Pierce is a project. I like James Pierce I like him as a pass rusher. I don't think he's a project. I think he's a really good pass rusher, and he should have 5.5, 6 sacks in year 1. All right, let's keep it rolling here, guys. Let's keep it rolling. Hey, Garrett, what's up, Texans fan? How we doing? How are we doing? All right. I want my Steelers to go after Marcus Yarns out of Delaware. He reminds me of a prime Le'Veon Bell, but with explosiveness. So Marcus Yarns is an interesting prospect. I don't know if I would say a prime Le'Veon Bell, but he's definitely an interesting prospect for sure. The thing with Marcus Yarns, and the thing is there's so many guys to keep up with especially with the running back. But Marcus Yarns is... I don't think that's a pro comp that I would give out for him. Marcus is, he is 5'10", 192, and he ran a 4.45 40. But the biggest concern that I have with Marcus Yarns in terms of where he would be in terms of, just in terms of projecting to the NFL level, I don't think he is that good of a pass catcher. And I also really worry... And I mean really worry. I don't think you can even field him on third down unless he is specifically going out for a route, because he is not he's not an NFL, he's not close to an NFL caliber pass blocker. So I like Marcus Yarns. I think he's fun, but I don't know if there's a realistic path to the NFL, at least at this point. I hope there is, and I wish the best for Marcus, but he is not a... he's just such a specific player that he's going to have to go to the specific... he's just going to have everything kind of line up for him. I wish the best for Marcus, but he's going to be in a bit of a tough situation. All right, just got into football last year by far. Your channel's by far my favorite. I've learned a lot. I appreciate that, Jake. I really do. All right, just joined. Let's see here. Just joined, so I'm not sure if you touched on it. Do you think the Giants take Hunter at 3? I don't think Sanders is worth that pick, and I can't see them passing on a blue chip like Travis Hunter. Yeah, so right now I do think they will take Travis Hunter at 3. Travis Hunter is... there's nothing I can say that you haven't heard. He's as advertised. I'll just say that. There's a lot of times where prospects are not as advertised, but Travis Hunter he's as advertised. He's a great football player. He is elite. He is what's the wording here? Oh, what I wanted to say was him and Malik Neighbors, if they both play receiver, is a very solid start. It's a great receiving duo. And the idea of Jameis Winston or Russ throwing them passes, obviously, isn't ideal, but at least you have something to build around, and you have something to get the fan base excited about, because this is not a good quarterback class. You don't want to force Jackson Dart at 3 when you have Travis Hunter right there. So I do think Travis Hunter will go. Chances Malachi Starks falling to 32. Another Georgia player for Howie. I don't think I think those chances are pretty low. I do like Malachi Starks. I think he's without a doubt a top 2024 player in this class. Without a doubt, by the way. I don't think he's going to fall to 32 personally. Weirder things have happened though, but that would be a very Howie pick, especially after trading CJ Gardner-Johnson. I would just personally be a little surprised if he did. Colts met with Quinn Ewers, possible franchise quarterback. That's an interesting thought. I'll just leave it at that. All right. thoughts on Marcus Mumbai, boiler up. I like Marcus Mumbai, smart football player. He's also a good football player, and the one thing that people a lot of the time people like to say is if you're a smart football player, a lot of the time they will stick around. But Marcus is good. He projects to be an interior offensive lineman at the next level, and I think he's going to be a guy that hangs around the NFL for quite a long time. So I am a big Marcus Mumbai fan for who he is as a player. That's one of the biggest things that I would say is one of Marcus's weaknesses, if you will, is that he's not, elite at any one particular thing. And that's, I think he's a solid player, and I'll just leave it at that. I think he will hang around the NFL for a while, at minimum be that utility offensive lineman. But I like him. I like him a lot for who he is. All right. Tristan says, I worry about TJ Hawkinson staying healthy, and he's expensive. TJ, he had the ACL tear. That was unfortunate the way that transpired in against the Lions back in 2023, but he didn't look the same last year. I'm willing to give last year a pass in terms of coming off the injury and everything, and I'm willing to give last year a bit of a pass for TJ, but there's definitely concern to be had. So I get where you're coming from, and I think it's valid relative to, like you said, what the Vikings are paying him. So that goes back to the previous Super Chat, Tristan, where if the Vikings take somebody like, let's just call it what it is. Tyler Warren won't be there at 24. So if they were to take, I have to sneeze, by the way. But if they do take Colston Loveland at 24, I wouldn't be opposed. I am one of the biggest Colston Loveland fans probably in the draft community. And especially if you pair him up with his former college quarterback, like I said, I wouldn't be opposed. That's depending on, who's available or what offensive linemen are available. All right. Let's see here. There was one comment that I saw specifically that I wanted to read. Where was it here? It was pretty crazy, too. Love from Scotland. Excited for Thursday. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. All right. Should Jags spend their picks more on defense or offense? So, it's going to, I'm going to give you the cliche answer at first, but the cliche answer is very, it depends how the board plays out. Hypothetically, if Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, not that they're probably not going to, but if one of them fall to 5, then you take them, right? And that, I guess you could say Travis Hunter would technically he could be a receiver in that scenario, but you get what I'm trying to say. The Jags right now, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to take Mason Graham at pick 5. They also pick again at 36. So this is a pretty loaded tight end class. I would be very surprised if they take Tyler Warren at 5. But pick 70, maybe somebody like Mason Taylor or Elijah Arroyo if they fall, maybe even the Jags trade up because they have 7 picks in the top 142. So they want to trade up to go get somebody. They like that. They can. To go back to, to break down what they should do, I would love for them to get Mason Graham at 5. That to me is ideal. They can also, like we said, trade up to get one of the tight ends later. And then even at pick 36, maybe if a safety falls, maybe if, there's going to be a receiver run at some point. You don't know when, but they could also go back and trade up to get another receiver. And if they want to, from pick 36 to pair Mason Graham at pick 5, and then maybe the 26-27 area, trade up, and maybe even the Vikings at pick 24, because that would make a lot of sense for both teams. And the Vikings could actually get some of their draft capital back, ironically. And then they could go up and get somebody like Luther Burden if he falls, and Mika Ibuka. So for the Jags specifically, it's going to depend on how the board plays out. But to give you a definitive answer, I would say more on offense, specifically because you are kind of at a now or never point with Trevor Lawrence. Hey, we gave you this big contract, first-year head coach. All right, buddy, we need you to produce. Give him everything you can. Now, I know I said Mason Graham first, but that's because I think he will be a better talent at 5 than another player that they could draft offensively. So hopefully that answered that one. All right, let's keep it going here. Between Caleb Johnson, Marion Hampton, and Cam Scatabo, who do you think fits Miami's running game better? I would say Caleb Johnson out of those 3, but I would be kind of surprised. Miami is, they're not going to take. That's a really weird question. It's kind of like saying, hey, who do you think fits the Chiefs' offense better, Cam Ward or Shador? No, they're just not going to take them. They're not going to take any of them. At least I would be very, very shocked. I think Miami is a lot bigger, pun intended, because they need beef. So they have a lot bigger needs than running back. All right. What teams would trade back besides the Titans? think the Vikings, of course, because they only have 4 picks. That makes a lot of sense. Let me see here. The Vikings make a lot of sense. I could see the Eagles, depending on how the board plays out. To me, that makes some sense there. Like I said, it's going to be one of those teams. If the receivers are gone by the time Green Bay is up, maybe Green Bay. It's gonna, like I said, though, the main thing is it depends how the board is gonna play out, and then some team between like 14 and 17, depending on the, which is Indy, Atlanta, Arizona, and Cincy, depending on when the runs of the position start. All right. Love from Sweden, appreciate it. What do you think will happen with James Cook? Do you think the Bills should re-sign him? I personally don't. I like James Cook. I don't think James Cook is just an enormous difference maker to the point where you have to pay him absolutely elite money. I would like to franchise tag him or sign him on like a one deal or a 1 or 2 year deal that's really, really loaded. I know James Cook over the past couple of years is, he has over 2,800 total yards of offense, 24 total touchdowns, 2 Pro Bowls in back-to-back, or, Pro Bowler in back-to-back years. But especially with the 16 rushing touchdowns this year, I think it's fair to say that James Cook is a good player. I also think it's fair to say that offense really, really benefits James Cook. Fair or not. I mean, I think both things can be true. I think both things are true. So I would prefer the Bills to go elsewhere than James Cook than to spend that type of money. I mean, we're at the point now in the post Stephon Diggs era where, I mean, guys, look at the receivers Josh is throwing to at this point. So, I mean, they signed Josh Palmer this offseason. I'd rather the Bills try and go get another big receiver for Josh to throw to. I mean, I know there's obviously hope that Keon Coleman takes a big step. So that could be the answer there, but I would say right now maybe a 1-year deal. And even I would be fine with a 1-year deal if it was, 22 or 23 million, just one big year. And then if he falls off, you know what? It's only 1 year. It's not that big of a deal. So that's kind of where I stand on that one. All right. All of this draft talk just for my Birds to repeat. I mean, every team has to get better. Every team has to give the Birds a chance. Every team has to try to give the Birds a chance for a run for their money. But the Birds, I mean, the Birds lost a lot this offseason. They're still going to be a very, very good team, obviously. Anybody that looks at them losing the guys they lost and just thinks that they're done is a little ridiculous based on how talented they are, how good Howie Roseman is. So I think they're going to be just fine. All right. Thanks for the great answer. Yeah, appreciate you. Yeah, of course. Appreciate it, dude. All right. Let's see here. Anything over Danny Dimes or AR at this point, going back to Quinn Ewers? I'd honestly rather have AR than Quinn Ewers, but that's just me. Love the podcast / stream. Appreciate it. If Tyler Warren isn't there at 14, what are your thoughts on Tyler Booker for the Colts? So, obviously they just lost Will Fries. It's going to be tough, man. I mean, Tyler Booker to me is good at what he does, but also very limited. His athleticism, or his agility rather, is not great, and he is, anytime you ask him to step out of, like, basically the width of, right, I mean, you can see the camera, I have my hands right here. If Tyler Booker steps outside of this, you're asking for trouble. So, in a deep edge class, I would almost prefer, based on how Indy attacked the secondary in free agency, I'd almost prefer Indy to go back and double dip at edge. And I know they just took Latu last year, but I'd almost rather Indy to go back at edge again. And one of the biggest things, and I'm releasing a video tomorrow on the 49ers, and we talk about this because this especially applies to the 49ers, but one of the biggest things that you draft for, and there was a conversation about Brock Bowers last year. It obviously didn't matter, and nobody brings this up now conveniently. But what you like to draft for in the first round, in addition to obviously taking a good football player, or hopeful good football player, is draft surplus. And what I mean by draft surplus is look at Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, any of those guys, right? And I'm just saying those two because they just got paid. They're the highest paid edge players, right? Nick Bosa, any of those guys, right? From a financial perspective, it is, and this is convenient because it's my team, but it's better to pay Jonathan Grenard $19 million per year and Andrew Van Ginkel $10 million per year in theory than it is to pay, for a combined 19 and 10 is 29. That's where we're getting the math. $29 million per year. Then it is to pay Max Crosby $35 million per year because you're getting both players for cheaper. So the reason we bring that up relative to the draft is because you can have an edge rusher at 14 or 15 or 16 overall make $6, $7, $8 million per year. And if you have somebody like Jared Verse have a just rookie of the year, just a phenomenal season, right? You have him finish top 5 in the NFL in pressures. He just put up production that is worth probably $35 million, right? In terms of what his production was. But the Rams only paid him, $5, $6, $7 million. So it's to go back to, I don't even know where I was going with that. But my point is I would rather go edge for the Colts. That was where that's to tie it back. To go back is I would rather go edge for the Indianapolis Colts. I would rather go there than Tyler Booker simply because I think the value is a lot better for them. All right. Johnny, appreciate it. When to expect grades for all these teams' free agency / draft video. So, little, I guess, announcement. I was going to go live for the first round of the draft. I was, but I'm not. I'm not going to go live for the first round. I will be live after the first round. So I'm going to record the initial draft grades video for the first round Thursday night at like 11:45, put that out right at midnight. And then the plan is to, go live immediately after that on YouTube and, hang out with you guys for however long, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. And then the point is, to answer your question, is to have the draft grades video for the first round immediately as soon as the first round ends. So that's the goal. And then we'll be live immediately after the first round ends as well. So there we go. All right. When you look at Travis Hunter, do you feel he's more of an elite DB or an elite receiver? I personally think DB, but I mean, who am I to sit here and say, hey, Travis Hunter, Jamar Chase just got paid $41 million per year, or 40 and a quarter. Sorry. But by the time Travis would get to his second contract, it'll be well north of $41 million. But anyway, the point is the average contract in terms of what guys are getting at the receiver position versus corner is obviously benefiting the receiver a lot. So who would I be to sit here and say, hey, Travis, you should play corner because you'll be better at that, but you'll make less money. And your career will also be shorter because corners generally don't play as long as receivers. I know there's outliers like Stephon Gilmore, like Patrick Peterson, and Richard Sherman play double-digit years. I get the point. But generally, receivers play longer than corner. So I think he's a better corner, but that's just where I stand on that. Hot take, Mike Green better than Abdul Carter at edge. I personally disagree. I'd be eager to see how you back that up. Or what would be the reasoning for that? I personally just disagree. And I'm respectful, you know what I mean? I'm not saying, hey, you're a dummy or whatever. You know what I mean? None of that. I'm just curious how you would back that up. So, all right. Let's see here. Let's keep it going with the questions. All right. What if Milroe was like Taysom Hill for Denver? Appreciate the super chat, Brett. So Jalen Milroe, early on, I wouldn't be opposed if he's in a role, not like Taysom Hill specifically, but not necessarily far off either. Jalen Milroe should be on the field inside the 5 or 10 yard line when you're down in the red zone. I mean, he is going to he should stress defenses out early on. He is an elite runner. I mean, he's sub 4.40. He's fast. He can throw the ball pretty far. Now, there's some processing decisions that I question with Jalen Milroe. There's times where he simply doesn't see a safety on the other side of the field, stares a pass right into an interception. That happened multiple times on tape for Jalen. But I would not be opposed to those types of packages for Jalen Milroe early on while you try to develop him. Now, the biggest thing with Jalen Milroe is he's not Jalen Hurts as a prospect. He's not as good as Jalen Hurts as a prospect. Jalen Hurts was a better prospect. Jalen Hurts didn't receive a lot of love as a prospect as much as he should have because he was in a class with Joe Burrow coming off of a legendary season at LSU. He was in a class with Tua, who was pretty favorably compared to Drew Brees as a prospect, and it made sense at the time. He was also in a class with Justin Herbert and Jordan Love, who were all, at the time, unless you thought otherwise, I mean, the consensus was Justin Herbert and Jordan Love were also better than Jalen Hurts. So that's your hope, but just because Jalen Hurts worked out does not mean Jalen Milroe will work out. So, all right. Abdul Carter, very one-sided on the pass rush end, whereas Mike Green is more of a big body edge setting type. Abdul only wins with speed. Mike can win with both speed and power. I think Abdul is, I think there's times where Abdul wins with, if you're talking like true speed to power, I'm basically going to try and get under your pads and basically get under the breastplate here and then just like forklift you back into the quarterback, then I would agree Abdul doesn't win on that consistently. But there's times where Abdul wins with an arm over. There's times where he will like specifically get up the field, know that he has the left tackle. It's basically just like taking candy from a baby at times for Abdul Carter, where he will get the left tackle in a position, and then as he is, about to turn the edge, pull a little ghost move, he will set the ice pick, spin, counter inside. Abdul Carter to me is the third best pass rusher in the past 5 years, with Chase Young and Will Anderson. So he's a beast, man. He's a beast. All right. Make sure. Let's see here. All right, we have a Super Pony. Appreciate it. Or other Colts go Jahad Campbell over edge. Look, you could talk me into that. I know what I didn't bring up Jahad Campbell, but you could very easily convince me of that. Jahad Campbell to me is a top 10 player in this class. Very, very comfortably, by the way. Jahad Campbell is a player where I look at him on tape, and one of the guys, Armand Membu is certainly up there, where I watch them play, watch a game, and it's pretty much, positive, and then it's a very clean evaluation for Jahad Campbell. He's a really good prospect, without a doubt, a first-round talent. Without a doubt. So if you would take Jahad Campbell over somebody like Donovan Ezeraku or James Pierce Jr. if he's there, I could understand that. I wouldn't be opposed to that. If you want to go with, hey, we're just taking the best football player available, go for it. So you wouldn't hear pushback from me, and I respect that, Super Pony. I do. All right, excited for our live stream Thursday. Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it. I will be there. I will, 7 p.m. Thursday. So looking forward to it. Who should the Bears take at 10? Pipe dream is Ashton Genty, for sure. I kind of am at the point where I think the Raiders will take Ashton Genty, but that's the goal. You spent all those resources this offseason trying to, upgrade. Well, not trying because they did. But whether it was Joe Thuney, whether it was Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, you did what you needed to do. You upgraded the offensive line. So that would be the best for the Bears is Ashton Genty. Should the Titans draft wide receiver or edge round 2? Good question. I actually did a mock draft that I posted the other day on Twitter for the Titans, where I specifically traded back up to like pick 23, 24, maybe 22, somewhere in there to go get Luther Burden. So I know the Titans don't have their third round pick because of the L'Jarius Sneed trade. They have 5 picks in the top 141. So just because they don't have that third round pick doesn't mean they're completely, helpless, if you will. But they are in an interesting situation. But to answer your question, Kelton, and I appreciate the super chat, I hate to say this, but it's so dependent on how the board plays out. Not just for them, but for anyone. I would rather them take receiver. Now, again, if somebody falls that shouldn't, at pick 35, that's a different scenario, but I would rather them go receiver because you need to help out your young quarterback as much as you can. So I would rather go receiver. The Titans are in a position where I don't want to say a lot of 2025 doesn't matter because obviously it does. Obviously. But you're in a position where outside of Cam Ward and his progression, a lot of 2025 doesn't matter for the Titans. It does, but it doesn't, if that makes sense. So you know what I mean, but I would rather go receiver. So we'll say that. All right. Have I ever played in a dynasty league? Of course. All right. What position is deeper? Defensive tackle or corner? Bills fan wanting to know. I think defensive tackle personally. Somebody posted this tweet today, and I loved just the wording of it, just because it was so true. It's a bad year to need a good corner. Not that there's not good corners in this class, but it's the defensive line depth is immense. I mean, the defensive line depth is. I actually am like I said, I'm posting a video tomorrow on the 49ers, but the concept of the 49ers needing what I like to call a fire hydrant defensive tackle, let me try to think of somebody, not like Vince Wilfork, because that's like a fire hydrant on steroids. And that's also not, Vince Wilfork is kind of one of one. He's not, there's just not a lot of players like Vince Wilfork. But if the Bills could get Tyreek Williams in the first round, if they could get Alfred Collins, if they could get Jamari Caldwell, and then my guy from Maryland, Jordan Phillips, if they could get any of those four, I would be pretty thrilled for the Buffalo Bills. So I would be thrilled with where the Bills. What do you see the Saints drafting? Trenches. I would like the trenches. Rams take Dart, no question. I like that. I like that landing spot for him. The thing is Jackson Dart to me needs a year. I actually tweeted out back in January that I would like the idea of Penn State quarterback Drew Aller going in the first round to the Rams. He went back to school, of course. But I would like the idea of Drew Aller going to the Rams and sitting for a year behind Matt Stafford. But he went back for a year, and Drew Aller certainly flashed first-round tape at times. But there's also times where Drew Aller flashed day 3 / I'll just say day 3. I was going to go a little meaner, but day 3 tape. So Drew Aller is... that concept applies to Jackson Dart, what I said about Drew Aller for the Rams. First Dream, appreciate you being in here. That's what's up, man. Appreciate you being in here. All right, why do so many people think Barron is better than Johnson? I don't get it. So for Jahdae Barron, it's more of he can play inside, he can play outside. He's, like we said with Jihad Campbell and even Armand Membu for that matter, he is a really clean prospect. I mean, there's not a lot in his game where you're just like, you know what, Jahdae Barron just does not have it to be able to play at the NFL level. Will Johnson, not that Will Johnson doesn't not have it, or you know what I'm trying to say. That was a double negative, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's not that he doesn't have it. It's just that Will Johnson has injury history now, and that's a little concerning for teams, especially the hamstring, because the hamstring is, it's one thing, I hate to say, but it's one thing to, if you break a bone, a lot of the time that bone will come back. You know what I mean? You'll be good. You do the rehab, it'll be good, right? It's a broken bone, but the hamstring is a muscle, and that's more. I mean, there's way more complexity than just me sitting here talking about a muscle versus a bone. But it's more of like a hamstring is something that lingers, and teams know that it lingers, and not that here we are in March that it's going to linger all the way into next November. At least you would hope not. But there's injury concerns with Will Johnson. So Jahdae Barron is, to me, a really solid player. I personally prefer Will Johnson over Jahdae Barron. That's just me. But I know there are people that prefer Jahdae Barron over Will Johnson. But a lot of what it boils down to between the two is the ease of the transition from one player to another, and then the injury concerns with the other. Now, Jahdae Barron also had 5 interceptions this past year. He also has really good ball skills, and Jahdae Barron did a lot of things right this past year to improve his draft stock. So there's that. All right, please answer. What do you think of the Patriots' outlook? Is the wide receiver room now satisfactory? Patriots should trade down and take Will Campbell. Also, they should trade Joe Milton. All right, I mean, the receiver room is, satisfactory. Is that what you want, though, with Drake May? It's okay. I don't look at the receiver room and think, man, a 31 going on 32-year-old Stephon Diggs coming off a torn ACL. I'm happy they did that because of how bad the receiving room was. And I know there's there is surprisingly a lot of Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas fans. Like, a lot of Patriots fans really, really like those guys. But I'm not moved by that trio and thinking, you know what, man, we're going to win 10, 11, 12 games here with this trio, especially with that offensive line. Now, I like your idea of trading down if they can to take either Will Campbell, but I would be fine if they sat at pick 4 and took Armand Membu. So, as long as they walk out of the draft with either player, I'd be good with that for the Patriots. And then they still have Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, who unfortunately neither one did a lot during their rookie year. I hope they both progress in 2025 relative to who they were as pre-draft or as draft prospects. But satisfactory, it's, I guess, close to satisfactory, but that's not ideal for a young quarterback. So, all right. All right. If you were a defensive coordinator, what scheme would you run? It's going to depend a lot. There's a lot of factors here, by the way. And there is no, like, just so we're clear, nickel was the more, nickel was the new base. Nickel was the new base. So it's not just, hey, let's run 4-3 and just, have all 11 players stay in the same field the entire game. It's going to depend on a lot of your personnel. I personally like I said, nickel is the new base. I like to have more speed on the field, and I like to have a star type player where, I can have a nickel that is a big nickel that can play or that can handle linebacker duties while still being fast like a defensive back. And that was why teams were so excited about Isaiah Simmons, the prospect from Clemson back in 2020, was because he could basically be a defensive superstar. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I like the idea of basically running like a 4-2-5 where you have 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then the 5 DBs. So nickel. That's where I would stand on that. All right. Hampton to the Steelers. I honestly really like Omarion Hampton to the Washington Commanders. That's kind of where I stand on that. All right. Is Breece Hall already washed? No. I agree. Javon Baker was thought of a steal at the time. There's a lot of people that, I'm not giving up on Javon Baker. He was a really good player at Central Florida, so I'm not giving up on him. And then to be fair, he said himself, I don't know what context you'd ever, wait, what are we talking about context here? Anyway, no, Javon Baker, I like him. I like Javon Baker. I liked him. I didn't really care for the Jalen Polk process of that. They traded back with the Chargers so they could take Ladd McConkey, and the Patriots wanted Jalen Polk. I didn't like I didn't like that process as it was happening. This is not I'm saying it now just because, I liked Ladd McConkey more than I like Jalen Polk by a decent amount. So I was not a fan of the process last year. Ollie Gordon and JT duo in Indy, thoughts? Sign me up. The thing is the longer that I do this, the more that I like, specific players, like hyper-specific players, like an Ollie Gordon, who is probably never going to rush for 1,000 yards or 10 touchdowns in a season, but a guy that 3rd and 2, we need 2 yards, we're at the 27-yard line, game on the line, let's just give it to our big power back, just put your head down, get 2 yards. That could be Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon is a player that'll be taken either late, I would actually probably say day 3 at this point. But I like Ollie Gordon for what he is. And anytime you can have a player like that, a power back, if you will, I'm all for setting the tone. So I would like that. All right. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on Walter Nolan? Probably nothing you haven't heard. He's a really good player. I think again, I'm not a huge fan of forcing pro comparisons, but there's one comparison for Walter Nolan that I really liked, and it was kind of like a more athletic Ed Oliver. And I know this is going to be very loaded, but just in terms of how fast his hands were and how explosive he is off the line and being able to mirror the explosiveness with the acceleration off the line into the hand usage as fast as he did. There were reps, not every single play, of course, but there were reps where it legitimately looked like Aaron Donald in terms of just like in terms of how fast everything was, like with the synchronization. So, not that Aaron Donald is my comparison for Walter Nolan, but there were a couple of plays where it was Aaron Donald-esque. Which is the biggest compliment I can give. I like Walter Nolan a lot. All right. Let's see here. Jets should draft Tyler Warren to give Fields a safety blanket. I would not be opposed to that. Miles, what's up, man? How you doing? Big Miles? Big Miles, how you doing? No, I wouldn't. Like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to that. You give him Tyler Warren, you give him Armand Membu. I'm fine with either. I like both. All right. Braden Swinson, Donovan Azaraku, Mike Green, James Pierce. How would you rank these? I like all 4 players. It's a good question. I like all 4 players. I would go Mike Green first. I would go JPJ second, and then, but like it's like Mike Green, James Pierce, and then Donovan as a Rockers right here. Braden Swinson not far behind. I would say the first three are definitely first round like grades, and then Braden Swinson's like late 1, early 2. I like Braden Swinson a lot, and people are coming around to Braden Swinson now, but I've liked Braden Swinson quite a bit for probably a month and a half. I like him a lot, man. He's my guy. All right, who are the generational prospects in this draft? I would say there's one. I would say one in Travis Hunter, just because he is not just generational, kind of like once in a lifetime because of how unique the situation is. But the reality is, if you were to say, hey, Travis, you are only going to play one side of the football, then he's not a generational prospect. He's just a very good prospect. So I would say none in that sense. If you want the true answer, but I think Travis Hunter is generational because of the versatility that you could have as a guy that, in my opinion, should play corner and then have, 15, 20 snaps a game at receiver. So I would say Travis Hunter, but that's just me. All right. But even Travis Hunter is a bit of a stipulation to the generational word because of the uniqueness. So, all right. Abdul Carter going to be generational. Like I said, he's behind Will Anderson and Chase Young for me in the past 5 years. Both were very good prospects. Chase Young, I'm fine with the generational label as a prospect. Him and Myles Garrett. But in terms of the past 10 years as edge rushing prospects, it would be Myles, Chase, Will, and then Abdul as prospects. So I don't think personally that, Abdul Carter being the fourth best pass rusher in the past 10 years should be a generational label. That's just me. Like him a lot. And I'm a Penn State fan. I like Abdul Carter a lot. But there is a members only video on Abdul Carter. It's a scouting report that discusses everything in length. So if you are a member, there's a lot of members of the channel have already seen the video. But I did at least want to point that out with Abdul Carter, that there is a members exclusive video. I plan to do another one in April. So we'll get to that. But there is a members only video on Abdul Carter, and it's an Abdul Carter scouting report. It discusses strengths, weaknesses, and projection, and everything that he did in his final year at Penn State. So Hutch was better prospect than Anderson and Young. No, he was definitely not better. He was definitely not a better prospect than Chase Young. Will Anderson, that would be, if you want to say that, he was not to me. But Chase Young was. It was Myles and Chase were the two in the past 10 years that were just wow. I mean, they were as prospects. Now, things happen once you get to the NFL. There's a reason that, can't miss prospects miss. It happens. So, but as a prospect, no. All right. Apologies for spamming. Are you seeing my question about Tet? I'm going to be honest, TD, this is the first I saw the Tet McMillan situation. This notion that Tet doesn't watch film, do you believe it or do you think it's overblown? Okay, there it is. Okay, saw it. Yeah, there was a clip that Tet McMillan that was such a weird clip. There was a clip that came out. Tet McMillan's doing an interview with somebody. I don't know who. Credit to whoever is doing the interview. I apologize to those gentlemen trying to make it in the media. I don't know who was doing the interview, right? They're interviewing Tet McMillan as he's like eating a salad or something, right? It's really weird in terms of how that was all set up. Tet McMillan says, no, I don't watch film because we're going to go over it in the meetings anyway or something. And then it was basically like, no, I don't really care that much about football. It's basically like how it looked. I don't buy that personally, that he's just got here just, oh, you know what, man, football is just, I don't really like football. I'm just going to do it because I'm good at it. To be a top 10 prospect and to be that good and to put that much energy and effort into not just football, but, lifting and nutrition and fitness and everything that goes into football. And not to mention, hey, here comes a 220-pound player across the middle. He's going to absolutely destroy you. And to act like he doesn't like football? No. So no. That's just me. I don't buy it. I'll just say that. I don't buy it. Really weird situation. It is. All right. Is Luther Burden going to fall to the first round? I hope not. I like Luther Burden a lot as a prospect. So I'm a big LB fan. I'm a big LB fan. How weak/strong do you think this draft class is? I think it's incredibly weak on paper. It's not going to have your your Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Brock Bowers, Caleb Williams, right? But somebody said, I was actually going to go like, there's a gap between 1 and 15 that's bigger than, or 1 and 16 than there is between like 20 and 70, or 20 and 50, right? Somebody described this draft as a meat and potatoes draft. And basically what that means is draft solid players. You're not going to get the Wagyu beef that's, this 5-star meal in Vegas that, is aged 60 days with this bourbon glaze or whatever words they like to use for all that, for some fancy meal that's like $500. You're not getting that in this draft, right? That's fair. But you can get a nice solid burger, you can get a nice sirloin and roasted potatoes at Texas Roadhouse versus like I said, that nice whatever, that Wagyu on the Vegas Strip or down in Miami or New York City or whatever, compared to, like I said, the Texas Roadhouse steak and potatoes. That is still a great meal, by the way. Shout out Texas Roadhouse. So it's in theory a weaker draft, but I like this draft class a lot for what it is. There's a lot of good football players in this class, so I'll just leave it at that. So was Bijan Robinson a generational prospect? I personally don't think so. And my criteria for generational is like the Saquon Barkley at the running back position. For me, it's Saquon, Bijan, and then somebody asked about Ashton Genty. I don't think Genty is generational because I think it's Saquon, Bijan, and then Ashton Genty. So there's no shame in that, though. Ashton Genty is still an elite player. So that's generational receiver for me would be like Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors is close. I mean, Neighbors was very close for me. I did have MHJ a little better than Neighbors. But you get the idea of the generational prospects. So offensive tackle would be somebody like Penei Sewell, Joe Alt. You get the point. So that will wrap up the stream. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. Appreciate everyone who came through. Appreciate the continued support. There will be a video tomorrow on the San Francisco 49ers. Draft month when you wake up tomorrow. So that's big news. Draft month when you wake up tomorrow. It'll also be April Fool's. So don't get fooled tomorrow. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.